Justice under this architecture also changes shape. A maturing people understands that harm must be addressed with seriousness, yet the purpose of justice widens beyond punishment alone and moves toward repair, accountability, restoration, and the reweaving of communal trust wherever possible. Some circumstances still require firm boundaries. Some actions still call for strong intervention. Yet the larger aim remains the healing of the social body and the strengthening of moral adulthood across the population. Individuals are helped to understand the weight of their actions, the roots of their conduct, the needs of those affected, and the pathways by which repair can be sincerely undertaken. Communities participate in this process too, because a wise civilization knows that personal wrongdoing often emerges within wider patterns that also deserve examination. Through this approach, justice stops being a theater of moral superiority and becomes part of a civilization's ongoing commitment to truthfulness, responsibility, and restoration. Across your world, the bridge generation is already here, and what makes this group so important is not fame, outward status, or how many people can currently recognize what they carry, but the fact that they are learning how to hold a future civilization in the texture of ordinary human living. Much of what has been spoken throughout this transmission now gathers into this final chapter, because every vision of LUMINARA, every warning carried through the memory of Atlantis, every inward awakening, every civic possibility, and every image of wiser stewardship comes down at last to the people who are willing to embody the coming order while still standing inside an unfinished world. That is the role of the bridge generation. They are the ones who begin practicing a different kind of speech while old language still fills the public square. They are the ones who begin forming cleaner relationships while older patterns of pressure and performance still move through the wider culture. They are the ones who begin designing homes, schools, circles, businesses, and places of healing that carry a finer pattern while much of society still organizes itself around fragmentation. Through such people, the future stops being an idea and starts becoming inhabitable. Seen from where we observe, this work begins much deeper than strategy. Beneath every structure stands an inner orientation, and beneath every civilization stands a set of invisible agreements about what is ultimate, what deserves trust, and what human beings are here to become. A great many on Earth are now being invited to withdraw their loyalty from the older pattern in which force, image, status, or technical brilliance are allowed to occupy the center. Another kind of loyalty is coming forward, one that restores indivisible source to the central place and then allows every gift, every skill, every craft, and every form of leadership to organize itself around that sacred center. Once that shift begins, even the most ordinary choices start carrying fresh weight. Success takes on a different meaning. Influence takes on a different meaning. Skill takes on a different meaning. Public contribution takes on a different meaning. A person no longer asks only how far they can go. A more mature question appears. What kind of being is taking each step? And what kind of world is quietly gathering around the quality of that being? For that reason, the first labor of the bridge generation is inward, steady, and wonderfully practical. Motive begins receiving careful attention. Speech becomes cleaner because exaggeration feels too heavy to carry. Integrity deepens because the soul grows tired of splitting itself between what it knows and what it performs. Hidden bargains with distortion begin loosening, not through harsh self-judgment, but through a growing love of simplicity, sincerity, and inner coherence. More and more among you are discovering that peace of being comes not through perfect circumstances, but through alignment between what is known inwardly and what is lived outwardly. That kind of alignment does not arrive in one dramatic sweep. It is formed in the repeated dignity of telling the truth plainly, of declining what no longer belongs, of keeping one's word, of treating other people with steadiness, and of remaining close to the sacred center in the midst of ordinary pressures. Through such repetitions, a human being becomes dependable ground. Clean interiority then begins shaping relationship. Much of the old world taught people how to connect through performance, mutual usefulness, hidden competition, emotional bargaining, or the quiet management of one another's perceptions. The bridge generation is learning something far finer. They are learning how to collaborate without slipping into dominance. They are learning how to guide without self-importance. They are learning how to disagree without tearing holes in the fabric of relationship. They are learning how to name what is real without making an enemy of another soul. None of this is small work. In fact, a civilization rises or falls according to the quality of its human bonds. Homes become seeds of culture. Friendships become schools of maturity. Partnerships become training grounds in reciprocity. Communities become mirrors in which each person can either remain defended or grow into greater honesty and skill. Through these relational laboratories, LUMINARA is rehearsed in miniature every day. Another layer of this final work concerns authority, because a bridge people must learn to stand in earned responsibility without reaching for the old costumes of control. In the coming order, authority will belong most naturally to those whose lives have become trustworthy through long practice, humble service, and repeated proof of steadiness under strain. That means the bridge generation is being asked to relearn what deserves admiration. Public confidence will need to move away from spectacle and toward ripeness. Surface brilliance will no longer be enough. Charisma alone will no longer be enough. Quick rhetoric will no longer be enough. A deeper standard is emerging, one that recognizes the rare value of a person who can remain clear while others become reactive, who can remain kind while holding firm boundaries, who can remain grounded in service while carrying significant responsibility, and who can remain teachable even after years of contribution. Once a people begins honoring that kind of maturity, the soil from which future elders will arise becomes rich and ready. That is why the Council of 12 cannot be assembled through branding, popularity, or spiritual theater. Such a circle can only be recognized after years of lived fidelity. It must come from lives tested by responsibility, shaped by service, and refined by the ordinary disciplines that reveal whether wisdom has truly become stable. The bridge generation therefore has another sacred task: to make depth visible again. Earth has spent long cycles rewarding speed, display, volume, and symbolic power. The coming civilization will need to reward something far quieter and far more durable. It will need to honor people whose words carry weight because they have been lived, whose presence settles confusion because they have passed through their own inner storms with honesty, and whose leadership uplifts others because they have no hidden hunger to dominate. A culture that can recognize such people is already moving toward LUMINARA, because it is learning how to choose elders who serve the whole instead of performers who serve themselves. Structural labor follows naturally from these inward and relational changes. A bridge people cannot remain content with private realization alone. Whatever has become clear within must begin finding form. This is where many of you are being called to build in ways both modest and enduring. Some are asked to create schools that help children grow in discernment, steadiness, and craft. Some are being drawn toward healing spaces that join skill with tenderness and help restore dignity to people moving through difficult seasons. Some are forming homes that function as places of sincerity, hospitality, blessing, and moral clarity. Some are building enterprises that prove commerce can support life instead of hollowing it out. Some are restoring land, tending food systems, teaching practical arts, shaping circles of study, mentoring younger souls, or holding community gatherings where deeper values become shareable and real. None of these efforts is too small. A new civilization is not built only through grand institutions. It is built through 1,000 forms of trustworthy practice. Through all of this, patience becomes a sign of wisdom. Human beings often imagine that meaningful change must arrive through overwhelming spectacle in order to count. Yet the deepest transformations on your world frequently begin in modest rooms, in kitchens, in local workshops, in quiet circles, in family rhythms, in well-tended land, in classrooms guided by care, and in small economic experiments carried out by people with clean motives. Such places may not impress the old culture at first. That does not lessen their value. Very often, the future gathers first, where sincerity is strong enough to protect it from premature display. Bridge builders will therefore need a form of courage that does not depend on applause. They will need the courage to keep refining what is real long before the wider world has language for it. They will need the courage to build carefully, to test what works, to repair what does not, and to remain devoted even when growth unfolds gradually. Endurance of that kind is one of the hallmarks of genuine stewardship. A further responsibility of this generation lies in the handling of inheritance. Many among you carry grief, memory, or fatigue from older cycles in which noble possibilities were distorted by pride, division, excess, or misused knowledge. That inheritance is not asking to be carried as heaviness any longer. It is asking to be transmuted into wisdom. Souls who remember the pain of collapse are often among the ones best equipped to recognize early signs of drift and correct them gently before strain becomes severe. Souls who know the ache of misused authority are often among the ones most committed to keeping leadership humble and service-based. Souls who have known fragmentation are often the ones who most deeply cherish coherence, reciprocity, and moral clarity. In this sense, even the difficult inheritance of human history can become part of the bridge, because it gives the coming civilization a deeper tenderness and a greater seriousness about what must remain central. As this ripening continues, many will begin feeling a very specific call between now and the next seasonal turning. By the time the June threshold approaches, a clear act of participation will want to take form through each person who is ready to serve the new order more consciously. For some, that will mean releasing a completed agreement, pattern, or role whose season has clearly ended. For others, it will mean establishing a new discipline that supports greater inward clarity and consistency. Some will initiate a local project. Some will begin teaching. Some will restructure their work so it reflects deeper values. Some will gather people into a more honest kind of circle. Some will repair a key relationship so a cleaner pattern can begin there. Some will simplify their surroundings so the emerging self has room to breathe and create. The exact form will differ from soul to soul, yet the invitation remains shared. Take one concrete step that the deeper self can recognize as faithful. Here, the practical genius of the bridge generation becomes especially important. Vision must learn to enter form. Insight must learn to take shape in schedules, habits, budgets, buildings, relationships, education, trade, and community care. Inspiration alone cannot sustain a civilization. It must be joined to stewardship. Once joined, however, even a modest structure begins carrying surprising force. A home becomes a sanctuary of sanity, A school becomes a training ground for mature citizenship. A business becomes proof that commerce can be ethical and nourishing. A healing space becomes a refuge of dignity. A local food network becomes an expression of reciprocity. A teaching circle becomes a quiet center of civilizational renewal. These are not side projects in the greater work. They are among its earliest and most essential organs. Through them, LUMINARA stops hovering as a distant possibility and begins breathing through actual forms in actual places. Over time, such faithful building changes the culture of recognition itself. People start seeing more clearly who carries substance and who carries only image. They begin noticing the difference between someone who can speak appealingly and someone whose life has become safe to build around. They learn to trust steadiness over flash, service over performance, and proven care over grand claims. Once enough people make that shift together, the emergence of a true elder circle becomes possible. Under those conditions, the eventual Council of 12 will not need to campaign for legitimacy. Their lives will already have become their witness. The people will know them by the quality of order, dignity, and clarity that gathers in their presence, and by the generations of trust they have helped cultivate through patient service. Such recognition cannot be rushed, and it does not need to be rushed. Ripeness has its own timing, and a civilization wise enough to wait for mature leadership is already leaving older patterns behind. All of this brings us to the final and simplest articulation of the bridge generation's work. Their role is to become the soil from which LUMINARA can stand. Soil receives, holds, nourishes, and supports what will one day rise into visible form. Soil does not seek credit, yet without it, nothing enduring can grow. So too with this generation. They are here to receive the inward birth of sacred radiance, to hold it with steadiness, to nourish it through character and service, and to support its emergence into forms that others can inhabit. Through them, the coming world finds dependable ground. Through them, the old split begins closing at the level where it matters most. Through them, children will inherit cleaner patterns, communities will inherit wiser structures, and future elders will inherit a people capable of recognizing them. Humanity, then, is not waiting for a new creative radiance to descend from some distant place. Humanity is becoming the place from which it is born. And dearest starseeds, LUMINARA now awaits your very creation. If you are listening to this, beloved one, you needed to. I leave you now. I am Tia of Arcturus.